I know people who have 200,000 but are always in debt. Are making 200,000 a year, and I mean, it's so funny because I talk to all many of my employees. I can't say all because they don't all take me up on my open door policy, and I don't get to everyone. But it's crazy because I'm so well known as an entrepreneur. But I'm the CEO of this company, and I speak to kids all the time that work for me. They will often bring up that their parents were entrepreneurs, if they were, or anti-entrepreneur, right? Like one of the two, like a union man, right? Like whatever it might be. And it's really interesting, this is so cliche, I'm sure this will land for everyone. It's interesting to watch them then react to that, right? They either go all in on it or they go all out on it. And the ones that go all out on it tend to be the ones that lived in families, regardless of how well they were doing, always stressing about money. Because there's also the other part in society that we've lost, which is there's making money, but there's also saving money.
Yeah.
And Dave, you and I grew up when people talked about saving money. There are people that I know, and especially in this new world with inflated dollars like you just talked about, who make $1 million a year and don't have a dollar to their name because they're buying dumb shit.
Yeah. It's a real problem. I kind of cringe when I see, guys with, 25 with a Ferrari and all that. Even if you have the money when you're 25, you probably don't need to buy a Ferrari.
I cringe less about the savings and money. I always ask myself, does he need that to patch up an insecurity?
Yeah.
Are we using things to make ourselves happier? Which gets me all the way back. I'm sorry, audience, but I'm coming all the way back to the answer to your question. What would I say to 25 or 45-year-old, depending on start or transition? Please pick something you actually like.
So it hasn't changed that much.
No.
Because of AI or anything like that.
No, because I think it's incredibly hard. And if you're gonna build something for yourself, you don't know if you're destined to have a $10 million business or a $300,000 business. But if you love it, if you love Star Trek more than anything in the world, and you wanna build a business around that passion, you start a podcast, you make content for social media, that then leads to Creative Commons product like t-shirts, or you create like, anything. Literally, that's what's so amazing about the world now. You create anything, anything from a beanie to a protein powder that maybe is a slang term that Spock said in episode 4 of season 3. I don't know Star Trek very well, but I'll use Star Wars. Greedo was my favorite Star Wars character, tier 7 character in the Star Wars ecosystem. But like when you know something deeply or you love something deeply, we live in an unprecedented time in the world where the internet, the blockchain, AI, you have the mobile device. You and I, when we started our stuff back in the day, we didn't live in this lucky time where we could have just done organic content and got free distribution. Dave, social media is free distribution. Do you know how insane that is? I've been in the lab. And what that means is I've been in my head. People see me, especially people that don't know me as well here, may see me super loud, super New Jersey, maybe a couple curse words. And I'm very empathetic to the first glance, being like, is this guy for real? Is he a blowhard? Other people love it and it clicks, just how the world works. But what's ironic is when people see me on social media or on stages, I'm talking the whole time, right? Even in this format, I'm gonna speak a lot. I even get excited at times and interrupt you, so I apologize in advance to everyone who's listening. But the reality is I spend most of my time actually thinking. My favorite thing in the world is the shower, is the walk to work, is the long flight. And so I've been in the lab a lot in my own head for the last year especially on the concept of redefining success. I think about root cause, right? I think about when I think about health and wellness, I think about the food system is very entrepreneur. America's a capital. Listen, I'm an entrepreneur. I love capitalism, but when capitalism, like anything in life, goes too far, it does things like what's going on with our food situation, and right? Things like that. I think about these things.
It's funny. I wouldn't have pegged you as someone who would call that out on the show. And maybe I'm just being, like you're such a broad spectrum entrepreneur, but more media. So you're worried about the food supply too, huh?
I think about clean eating a lot.
Yeah.
I think about laws. I think about the fact that grass-fed can be worked around, but grass-finished can't.
So when did this come online for you? Because I don't know that 10 years ago this was in your conscious field. Like what changed for you?
in general, like, I would argue that most of the good that's happened in my life is curiosity. And I'm also a kid that was born in the Soviet Union. So for example, my great grandma Anya, when we moved to New Jersey out of Queens, the first day she visited, in the morning when I woke up, she made me go walk outside barefoot on the grass.
No kidding. So grandmothers are always biohackers if they were trained by their grandmothers, right?
Right, especially from the old country, right? My grandma spent her first 75 years in the Soviet Union, which is 50 years behind America. So, or fasting, like, because I grew up in my dad's liquor store, I didn't eat breakfast or lunch my entire life. I still don't, predominantly. So there's, so anyway, obviously I'm very aware of your audience, and it's funny because the reason I'm bringing these things up is it's how I see entrepreneurship. So I love entrepreneurship because I think it is one of the arenas in the world that allow people to maximize their joy. I love building businesses the way I see my friends who are poets, how I see my friends, I see entrepreneurship today, unlike when you and I played with it in the mid-90s, even that short ago. Now it's cool. So now kids are forcing themselves to be entrepreneurs, and that scares me. I want people to be entrepreneurs if they are entrepreneurs, but I'm petrified if somebody does it because they think it's the cool thing to do.
Thanks for saying that.
Well, because you know this, Dave, like, it's really lonely and hard, and it hurts your self-esteem because unlike school, you can't hide when you fail in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Did you hear that interview with the founder of NVIDIA?
I did not.
Well, they asked him, what would you tell yourself, back when you and a friend were in college dorms starting NVIDIA, what advice would you have? And his advice was, don't do it. It was, you have no idea how much suffering this is going to cause you.
Yeah, and I don't...
From one of the most successful entrepreneurs on the planet, right?
Well, it's funny. I don't know him, and I've heard many people say that through the years, and I don't think they actually mean it. I think it's a soundbite.
Sure.
For example, I think when you're a purebred entrepreneur, this is gonna be a left field one. I actually think the adversity is the most delicious side dish.
Yeah, because if you're used to fighting.
Correct.
It changes though. I've heard your stuff has changed as well. So for me, at the beginning, it was, even before Bulletproof, just in tech entrepreneurship, it was like, I'm gonna prove something to the world or to myself, and probably more to the world. Like I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna push.
This is very common. I think there's two fuels. I think there's chip on shoulder.
Right, I certainly had that.
And I think a lot of people have that, but I'm very fortunate. And I don't love using the word luck, but this is as black and white like luck to me as possible. Between my DNA, the mother who was a suffocating force of positivity and optimism.
Suffocating optimism.
Suffocating optimism, but practicality, not modern parenting where you also add delusion, which eliminates merit. Incredibly optimistic and positive and sunshine, but held me accountable, a word that has completely disappeared from modern parenting. And circumstance. I believe if I was born in America as a third generation DNA of my family entrepreneur, my life would have looked very different. But I was born in the Soviet Union and came here and grew up with the struggles that gave me outrageous perspective to gratitude. I believe, Dave, that the greatest gift is when you are born, if in the first 10 years of your life, you are not in incredible means, you're lower middle class and below. This is the greatest way to be born. That money is not a thing in your family yet, or maybe ever, but you have unlimited happiness. You've been taught, you've been built, you've been affected by money is not the variable of happiness. In the same way that I was on Prodigy and then the internet on the E. Robert Parker, Mark Squires bulletin board talking about wine to find my community and then make them aware of Wine Library, you and I had to spend hours, countless hours of building community to have a community. Today, Wine Library TV started on February 21st, 2006. YouTube itself was launched on December 15th, 2005. Within 2 months, or roughly a little more than 2 months after YouTube existed, I started a long-form wine show about wine on YouTube. I made a 20-minute video, I posted it. 19 people watched it, maybe. Today, 2006 Gary, with his, which I was born with, my charisma and capability to communicate, and my wine knowledge, at that point, was more than half my life because I started learning about it at 14. That first video, Dave, might be watched by 800,000 people, the first one.
Wow.
I mean, it could also have gotten 80, but anybody who's listening right now, let me just give you the universal truth. If you do not take social media seriously in 2024, it doesn't mean you're gonna go out of business. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean that you're like whatever, but you are absolutely missing out on opportunity to create your thing. That is incredible in the speed and time, if you produce content on the internet, of building awareness and opportunity, because the algorithm now is letting the creative find its audience. When I started doing social back in the mid 2000s, and you and everybody else, all of us, when we started doing 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, MySpace, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, it was more like email marketing. You have to make content and slowly but surely build a following, AKA a list. And then you would post, and 30 or to 40%, just like email newsletters, of your audience would see it. Today, what we have is the interest graph, not the social graph. The social graph was build a following, post. The interest graph is make something and let the algorithm, the AI, find the audience of the billions of people it has on the platform. That is remarkable.